This is City Focus, the podcast from the League of Oregon Cities, where we explore the issues that matter to cities across Oregon.
As Oregon's capital city, Salem has many things to offer its residents and visitors. In this episode of City Focus, Salem Mayor Chuck Bennett joins us for a conversation about his many years serving the community he loves, about the challenges and successes he's seen, as well as his vision for the future. Salem Mayor Chuck Bennett, welcome to City Focus.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, you are the mayor of the city of Salem, and as everybody knows, the city of Salem is the capital city. I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges of being, the capital city, what that looks like and what that means for the city of Salem. But before we get started on that, tell our listeners a little bit about who Chuck Bennett is, what has been your civic involvement, why you wanted to be mayor of Salem, just all that good stuff.
Well, I'm into my third term, so I'm going through now, why did you want to be mayor of Salem? That always is the question I think we ask ourselves as time passes. I grew up in Eastern Washington, just out sort of between Spokane and the Idaho border. And I came down here to Salem almost 55 years ago to go to college and stayed. I went to Willamette. I graduated from there. Got a degree in English. I went to work for the local newspapers. I have edited the Woodburn Independent, the State and Mail, and I was a city hall reporter for the Capital Journal back in the mid-1970s.
Oh, wow.
So that is kind of where my civic engagement really got going. I had a chance to cover some really great city councils, got to know some really wonderful mayors, Robert Lindsay, who just passed away, really good friend and really a great mentor. And really watching him be mayor was genuinely inspiring. And I thought, well, I might kind of be interested in that. I don't know when or how that'll all work. And Kent Aldrich, who's still with us and is just a really fine man. I got real interested. I got into the real detail, too, as a City Hall reporter of how the city works, what a council manager government form looks like from the inside and the outside. And then I also was elected to the state legislature from a rural district. I lived out in Gates, east of Salem.
Okay.
For about 15 years. I bought a house out there about 45 years ago. I owned it right up to the fires this year. The house is gone. I still own the land, but I was elected to the legislature and really enjoyed that. I spent then the rest of my career as a lobbyist, mainly for education-related organizations, particularly the school administrators, school principals, and superintendents organization. I retired almost 3 years ago, about 3 years ago now, almost exactly. And I had been appointed to a batch of boards and commissions because I really got interested when I moved back to town, about 30 years ago from Gates. I really hadn't left. I was down here every day, but I just started volunteering and I served on just a whole range, library board, planning commission, budget committee, that kind of stuff. And then I was appointed to the city council, 13, 14 years ago.
Okay.
From Ward 1. And then I was elected. I served for 9 years as city councilor from Ward 1. And then I'm now as I mentioned, in my third term as mayor. So, and I love it. I'm really, you can get into this stuff and it's sort of like you don't get it and you don't have any fun. I think I understand it and I thoroughly enjoy it. The frustrations are the kind of the excitement of it. It's not just frustrations,
Well, you kind of, Salem is a very cool city. But again,
it is. It's a great city.
It is, and it's got a beautiful downtown. And the downtown had been, really being revitalized. I mean, we had the convention center come in. There were all kinds of exciting things. The Minto Brown Bridge. I mean, there have been all kinds of cool things that have happened during your time on the council and in your position as mayor. So talk a little bit about, some of the good things over your tenure, let's just say as city councilor and mayor, that you're most proud of.
Well, the one there's just a whole bunch of projects we've done that I'm really proud of. You mentioned Riverfront Park. That's been an ongoing project. As a city councilor, it was underway. And then as mayor, I've been able to work on some very specific projects like the Courtney Minto Island Bridge, and then also on the Jerry Frank Rotary Amphitheater.
Yeah, which is coming along nicely.
Oh, that opens this summer, and that's going to be a real game changer down here. And we've done a lot of other things down in that particular area. I'm also very involved. I was around when downtown Salem 50 years ago, I was covering it, turned from being kind of the old downtown it was, the 100-year-old downtown, into a newer, more modern downtown with the mall and that kind of stuff. 50 years later, we're going to do it again. We're in the process now of working our way through downtown. We have a lot of tremendous interest, both local and national interest in our downtown area. So we're going to see a lot of things happening. Penny's has closed, but people are looking at the Penny's property. Union Gospel Mission is moving out of the downtown to their new facility. That opened up the city through its urban renewal agency. We bought almost an entire city block down between Commercial and Front Street by the bridges. The Nordstrom building, which is sort of part of the mall, has been sold, but is now being reviewed again for a resale by some national developers that are looking at it for another kind of project. And all of these have a theme to them of ground floor retail, small retail with housing above. And
that's interesting.
Is downtown Salem changing dramatically from sort of big box shopping and some boutique shopping to a more mixed use of local retail, smaller retail coupled with housing. And probably the prime example, we had a furniture store, McMahon's, burned down on Commercial and... or not Commercial and State. Yeah, it would be Commercial and State. And that burned down, and that is being replaced rapidly. The building is done now, and I think it's getting close to 40% leased up.
Oh, wow, good.
Over 140 units of small apartments, efficiency apartments with ground floor retail or services. I know one of the services going in is a 24/7 gym into that building. It's about 7 stories tall. It's a really beautiful building. Just up the street at the kind of parkway there and Commercial Street is the old Marion Street garage. And it's going to be replaced by a really beautiful hotel with top floor restaurant and all that. And that's going to really get going here. It's kind of kitty corner from our convention center.
The convention center,
We'll begin seeing the ground really breaking on that very soon. So there's a lot going on here. And what has really excited me is a tremendous interest both locally but nationally in Salem and downtown Salem. It's a place that people are very interested in investing in and working with us in developing the vision we have of a really vibrant neighborhood and regional shopping center. It's kind of a mix there with outstanding restaurants, outstanding small and local and national stores. I think it's going to be very exciting for people.
So what the draw, because it's a beautiful downtown, because they love Oregon, what is drawing national out-of-state developers and people to Salem?
Well, our market is very hot. We, anyone who has gone through home sales know you can't get it. You cannot, and I've been through it. I know you've been through it. If you put a house on the market, it moves within days. I mean, it's just very, very fast. We were surprised. We had a house that we sold, and it was like, geez, that was quick. Did we price it right? But we are an affordable market. We are close to the metropolitan area. We're just, actually, there are parts of Salem it's quicker to get into Portland than it is from parts of Portland using I-5.
Well, it's a straight shot right up. So
yeah, you just shoot up there.
Yeah.
We're also very close to really from Wilsonville on, where you're starting to have a lot of the more urban development going on. And it's also a real family-friendly city.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have some of the issues that confront Portland and that metropolitan area. It's just different. It's a smaller, more family-friendly. We're the second largest population city in Oregon, although we are moved away just far enough to not be part of the metropolitan area. And it creates a different kind of vibe here, one that we have an outstanding school system. We have added to that school system some really excellent higher education with Corbin University, Willamette University.
Yeah.
Western is here now with some management level classes, Chemeketa Community College. And then you add to that our public school system, second largest in the state, and really, really moving along, particularly leading the way in career and technical education that allows us to provide we can confidently say we have a workforce that will fill your needs when someone approaches us about coming here, which is a great draw.
Yeah, that's a great program. You mentioned that we have a family-friendly still maintain that small town feel a little bit. Granted, it's not as much as it used to be because we are growing. But with that growth, and we don't have the problems that say the Portland metro area has, but we are starting to deal with some of those. And so
yeah, we are.
I want to pivot a little bit because part of the growing pains with a growing city are bigger city problems, and one of the ones that's been challenging Salem city councilors, mayors in the past has been the growing homelessness.
Yeah, homelessness, like every other more urbanized city and even small towns, is here. When we poll our community, what's your biggest issue? It is homelessness. It is visible, more visible than it's ever been.
Yeah.
I think we're taking it on correctly. We are focusing on it as a broad community issue with a focus on more affordable housing, along with looking at the homeless community not as a single homeless community. We look at it by looking at the various needs we discover inside of it as we've really learned a lot about it and have worked with the individuals and the smaller sub-communities that exist inside of that. And I think we've developed programs that work with each of those communities fairly well, and we're adding more programs and housing options that will meet the different needs. And I think it's, there's a real difference between somebody who lost their job and couldn't pay rent, and had to move into the trailer or an RV in a parking lot.
Yeah.
But has a job or wants to get back to work and all of that. And a person who is suffering from profound mental health issues or really profound drug or alcohol addiction. And we need to deal with that. But we also at the same time have to deal with moms running away from abusive situations or going through a divorce where suddenly they lose the house, the way the whole thing comes together, but also have kids. Or the senior citizen, and this is an increasingly common problem. They're certainly the fastest growing segment of the homeless community who just don't have enough money to rent. Rents are, and we're working on those, looking for that kind of sub-minimum rent housing. And we work with a lot of partners. We have 50 to 75 nonprofits here in town we work closely with. And we are very fortunate. We have a number of them who are fully committed to this. Our United Way has become fully committed, along with other local organizations that deal with women, elderly, drug addicted, and each of those have been willing to kind of step up with new and different ideas. I think we're doing okay. We have our critics. We're not doing enough, or we're doing too much. We're enabling this population, and probably all opinions are true, but we still got to try to keep working with it, and we can't get discouraged. And the one thing we can't do that a lot of people suggest is, why don't you just tell them to go live somewhere else? Well, this is America. I hate to tell everybody. I don't want to shock anybody, but we have a court system. And we have a set of rights that allow people to do pretty broad amount of lifestyle choices that I may not choose and they may not choose, but that those individuals who chose them did. And to the extent that we can assist them through difficulties and try to get them back into a more productive course, that's what we try to see as our part of our mission. We work with the state. We're working more and more with the county and with our nonprofits. We've got a ways to go. Some really, really tragic mistakes have been made over the years relative to particularly, I think, our mentally ill that just break my heart. What I see on the street and the inability to provide the kind of service it really takes.
You look at the sort of the decisions that were made 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and you start seeing the ramifications and the results of that. There's one, particularly, I think it was in the local paper, the story about what's happening out at Cascades Gateway Park. Yeah. And then you look at the older senior living mobile home park out there. So I imagine as a mayor and as your city council, you've got a way, wanting to help the homeless population, but then you've got a population of the senior citizens. And in reading that article, that are terrified a lot, and there's a lot going on. So I imagine that is just a constant challenge to sort of thread that needle and make that balance of responsibility to both of those groups.
Well, it is. And I think the other thing, and I may be the only counselor that feels this way, you better be ready to say you made a mistake. And I think that was a mistake, or it was done wrong. We could have managed it better in order to protect that senior citizen community out there. And that is the one that has probably disturbed me the most, because that really should have been identifiable. We did not have the kind of follow through that was really needed to make sure that those two communities didn't come into conflict. And we also had satellite services developing out there that helped attract more people out there, more homeless folks out there. We're on the right track. I think after our council meeting 2 nights ago, we've decided to pull back from a strategy of unregulated park camping. And the first place I asked several times, and I think I got a very positive answer. The first place we're going to focus attention is on where that conflict exists, get that resolved quickly as we can.
Okay, and it sounds like all the people that have a stake in this are at the table for that discussion.
Yeah, and we hear them. I mean, it's you feel terrible, and people are sort of like, "How would you like this in your yard?" No, I wouldn't. No, and if I couldn't live with that, why should I ask you to live with that? It's very challenging. But we cannot stand by and see it happen and not do something as quickly as we possibly can inside of this COVID environment and all the rest of the stuff that's been driving our lives.
Which brings us to another challenge that we have faced this past 15 months is the COVID lockdowns and the stressors that's put on citizens, business owners. What have you guys, that you and the council, you've got businesses that have gone under, businesses that are struggling, businesses that, and now with these new, with the mask things coming through that are put in more challenging situations. So how, as the mayor of the city of Salem, have you been able to navigate that path? Because that's, again, on top of everything else, has been another challenge.
Yeah, it has been difficult. I'll be real honest with you. It is one that I have felt like, we're headed in the right direction. Then it's like the rug gets pulled out from under the business, and then it's okay. And then the rug gets pulled. And I think, like everyone, there's a certain level of frustration. You kind of want to say, well, now what's this Oregon Health Authority? Who is this bunch? Is this that Fauci guy running this? Who are these people? But what we've done as a city has been to provide a really robust set of economic assistance programs to businesses that are being negatively affected. We have also changed some of our rules in terms of outdoor seating and work closely, particularly with our restaurants on this. We have not been the mask police.
Mm-hmm.
The city of Salem has not enforced any of this. That is not what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
This is up to our citizens, our businesses, the state of Oregon, and its built-in enforcement mechanism. But we decided we are under-policed in Salem anyway. We are not going to give up on traffic enforcement, crime prevention, and enforcement in order to decide whether or not people will engage in this program. And what we've seen here in Salem is a tremendous amount of voluntary support for a program that did not overwhelm our hospital. Our hospital made it. Despite we're going to have them, the beds will be in the streets. We won't have enough beds. Well, it's a well-manned, we have a superb hospital system here.
Yes.
We also have a community that, again, this is a real family-friendly, it's a very moderate to conservative community that kind of, I think, took a look at it and said, okay, I'm going to go along with everything that I can up to the point that I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had minimal issues. We've had a few that made some national news where folks had some confrontations, but we have had none of those confrontations have gone further than letting OSHA come in and do whatever it is those guys do. We just sort of stood back on those. We've had other kinds of issues around demonstrations and things. We are the Capitol. So.
Right, exactly. So that that Capitol building is going to be a draw, and it was a draw. And I know Salem Police, wonderful police force, great community support for Salem Police. We have a new chief. We have a new police building now that is beautiful. And I understand there's some ongoing concerns. There's a demonstration sometimes out front there, but it sounds like things are handled very soberly here, and they seem to be dealt with, and they don't get out of control.
I think our former police chief, Jerry Moore, long time police chief, beloved in this community.
Yes.
Took us through the completion of the new police facility. We hired Trevor Womack from Stockton, California. He brings the same kind of calm, not stoic, but calm and informed policing standard to the community. And it has been interesting because this has all been done inside of both the COVID, but also the George Floyd demonstrations, and Black Lives Matter, Antifa, Proud Boys, all of that, and in that mix, everybody's got a sense of, well, they're policing me more than they're policing them kind of thing. And I'll tell you what I've appreciated is there's been a consistent level of policing here, which is nobody gets hurt and we're not going to wreck any property here. And you know what? Nobody's been hurt and we haven't had any property wrecked, and our police respond appropriately at any time as required. We do have, as you mentioned, the Capitol building is a challenge. That's a state building. The state police really are the folks who defend that building or supervise it, however you want to look at it. We have very good cooperation with them, and our guys are there most commonly to just make sure things don't move off the Capitol grounds into our downtown, which is right nearby. and that the streets are available if people want to march. We try really hard to make sure everybody gets their voice. We are not evaluating the ideology of people who are demonstrating. That's their business, not ours. And I appreciate that. I have residents who don't. I've never heard quite so much discussion of both hate speech and on both sides, the hate speech comments, open carry, a lot of issues that are just not on the table for us. We defend people's right to speak and demonstrate. That's what we're here for. We're not here to stop them, and we're sure as heck not here to help them figure out what they want to say. That's not what cities do very well, you know. We're much better at receiving the comment than telling people what they ought to tell us to say.
Sure, and understanding the First Amendment right to speech.
Absolutely.
And it's it's there to protect speech that some may hate and may not like.
They may not like. The other reality we're in is there is a Second Amendment. And that Second Amendment with associated state law allows for the presence of firearms in situations that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. I get it. I mean, I understand they're uncomfortable, but there's no law against it. Right. And we did not enforce the COVID restrictions on any demonstrations we saw. And both sides contacted us saying, why aren't you enforcing COVID against them? The idea is not to have people get angry at the world around them and decide to bust up your town. I think it's been done really well here. I'm very, very pleased. I've been severely criticized for my support of the police by certain groups here in town. And I think we're 60 to 80 police officers short. So we're not going to be defunding our police department. If anything, we're going to be looking for ways to increase our police department.
I was going to say, it sounds like you need to be recruiting.
We are
60 to 80 officers down. And I would imagine Salem PD is an attractive.
What we look for is the funding to add those officers. We have got to get serious here. We have traffic issues. We have drug issues. We have a whole bunch of other issues that really demand the attention of a well-trained police force. That's what we have. That's what we want to expand. We're a growing city. I watch other cities make what to me are just sort of tragic mistakes relative to the departments. And while I'm mayor, at least I won't be leading that fight. I'll be speaking out against it and particularly in favor of what I think has been a very successful program here in Salem.
Well, we've talked about a lot of the good things, some of the more challenging things as we move through. I'm not sure, lightening restrictions. I don't know. It still seems like Oregon is very restricted as compared to the rest of the country. Moving forward into late spring and summer, are we going to start seeing more festivals, World Beat, things like that are down at the park that are going to be wide open for people to go and get out and stretch their legs and get out of their houses?
Absolutely. There are going to be. We're going to be opening the Jerry Frank Rotary Pavilion later in July. But right away, we've got like a big Iron Man.
Oh, yes, I heard of that. On. Yes.
I call it a thing because I'm not real clear what it'll look like, but my understanding is going to be a very big deal. We have some national concert type folks who are looking at a pavilion with real interest. I'm very hopeful we'll get back to our nationally recognized art.
Oh, yes, the art festival. Fair. Yeah.
I think we're getting there really, really fast. I think the governor has said, she's looking at June as the month where we'll really begin to, we're seeing it in Multnomah County. I think we'll see it here. And I think as soon as we can, people will stop wearing masks and we'll have much more open and active sort of community events. I'm noticing more and more people not wearing masks.
Yeah, me too.
And it's a real pleasure just to see people's faces again.
Smiling faces. It's so lovely. It's so hard. I don't recognize people. Sometimes if all I can see is their eyes, I don't recognize them. So it's been a delight to see people's faces.
Recognizes me with my mask on. It's like, oh Lord.
So it sounds like you are optimistic for the future of Salem.
Oh yeah. Very, very optimistic. I recognize Salem is a part of Oregon. I look at Oregon and kind of what's going on here. I think our politics continue to be here and around the state to be very divisive. Ours are divisive, but everybody's polite. Maybe that's part of what Salem is. But there are things that concern me over the future of my city and my state. I worry about, and I think sometimes the lack of civility, the willingness to try to make people do things, to use government as a coercive force, concerns me a lot. What's happening out there. So I watch it and I listen to it.
Yeah.
I hope I'm being clear on where I think Salem is headed. And I think it's going to be a city that is growing. It's growing rationally. We're finishing our comprehensive plan update, first one in 40 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, a full-blown, let's redo the thing and get it up to date. We're a city that's growing, but we aren't going to be expanding outside of our urban growth boundary. There's no proposals to do that. We're increasing our density.
So we're building up?
To know each other. We're going up, getting a little tighter. We're going to know our neighbors a little better than we did. But I think we have a couple of things that really help us a lot. We are the seat of state government, and that gives us an incredibly stable workforce. Our largest employer is government. And, some communities would or would not like that. I hear people complain about it both ways here in Salem, but I'll tell you, what it does is guarantee that you have, 35-40% of your community employed and pretty well protected from unemployment issues and actually needed. The worse it gets, the more you need them, kind of thing. So that kind of stability, I think, is really enviable. And we've also had the foresight to really seriously try to diversify our economy. We have a good, solid manufacturing sector. Our service sector is very good. We have an outstanding hospital, which is our single largest private employer now at 4,000 or 5,000 employees.
Wow.
In the hospital system. We are in the midst of one of the most beautiful spots on earth, this agricultural center of the Willamette Valley, 50 minutes from the mountains, 50 minutes to the ocean.
Yeah.
And if you make a wrong turn, 50 minutes to the big city. We've still got rivers and streams. I think that kind of natural and demographic position is very good. We have some challenges ahead. We continue to have a more diverse community. And we need to be very careful that we recognize that and adapt whatever services or programs or interactions we have with each other and recognize that diversity, the need for inclusion. These are really important values, but I think they're kind of inherent in this community. I haven't seen any reason to be genuinely concerned that we are not going to be able to continue to adapt. I think sometimes people show up here, spend a few months in Salem or a year in Salem and think they get it. They understand this town. And, it is a pretty, at times it can look pretty white bread in this town. It's not. Very diverse. I think 30% of our community is Latino, and we have a growing African-American community. We have a growing refugee community, primarily from Nigeria and the continent. And it's a pretty cool place.
It is. I agree with you. I think Salem is a pretty cool place. So it has been a pleasure to talk to you about Salem and give you a chance to kind of highlight the good and some of the challenging things. And I think we're up for it. And I think you're up for it. And so again, my guest has been Salem Mayor Chuck Bennett. Mayor Bennett, thank you so much for joining City Focus and sharing your thoughts with us today.
Great. Thank you, Denise, and thank the League very much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of City Focus. We will be talking with more mayors from across our state to hear their stories and how their communities are faring as we move forward into 2021 and beyond. If you're a mayor or city councilor from Oregon and would like to share your city's story on the podcast, send me an email at cityfocus@orcities.org.